Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. This is where right and left come to try to be reasonable. So everybody's talking about Venezuela. Is there a real issue? Yes, there is a real issue that must be brought forward about what's happening in Venezuela and what is about to happen. But we're not really focused on that. Not really. The state of play is a gotcha. Who ordered the second strike when those two guys were still hanging on the side of this alleged drug boat? And whether Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is throwing a real military man, an admiral, under the bus. Now, that's what this is about, certainly for the left, is getting that scalp. Now, is there legitimacy in that cause? Yeah. The president stepped away from owning this early on, but it is still his administration. Here's the thing. Whether or not Hegseth ordered it matters, but it really is just a piece of the larger question that no one seems to care about, okay? What they care about is getting Hegseth out. They want the scalp and embarrassing the president. That's what it seems to be for most involved. Not for me. Why? There's something more important. And it includes that, but it matters more. It's just not as sexy. I want to shine the light back on Congress, because this is about Congress allowing presidents to take their power, specifically over military action. President Trump is doing what past presidents, both right and left, have done, and in my opinion, done often wrongly. Taking unilateral military action and counting on Congress to cower. We've seen it. We saw it with Obama. We saw it with Clinton. We saw it with Bush. We saw it with Reagan, okay? What is the authority to do anything around Venezuela? The administration says, oh, we have a Department of Justice memo. It says it's okay. Oh, but it's a secret. We won't release it. Here we go again with no transparency. It has to fit into a very narrow category for a president to work unilaterally in this way if we're not being actively invaded or attacked by a sovereign. Now, they'll say, well, we are. We're repelling an invasion. We're protecting the national interest because this drug thing is basically a war. Does that pass muster? We don't know. He's never made the case. Does the president have the power to attack boats because cartels are selling drugs? Is this really an extension of financing a campaign of violence inside the United States? Does that even make sense to you logically? Well, let's unpack it. What drugs? They keep saying fentanyl, fentanyl. Venezuela, to my understanding, unless you know something I don't, and certainly nothing's been offered, they don't make fentanyl. There's been no proof submitted. One report, says that 20% of boats that have been stopped from Venezuela looking for drugs didn't have any, let alone have fentanyl. Mexico makes fentanyl. Oh, no, not fentanyl. We meant coke. Okay, that's not Venezuela either. That's Colombia. And they come up through Mexico as much as they go through Venezuela. So who do you blame here? I blame Congress. They're the ones who let this situation fester. Have they not learned anything from Vietnam? Oh, wait, they did. That's why they passed the War Powers Act of 1973, so we don't get into another police action that kills tens of thousands of Americans or more over years and years. The War Powers Act is simple. If a president believes reasonably that they are getting attacked, you got a 60-day window to conduct military operations. And then you've got to stop and you got to make the case to Congress for further authorization. Trump has passed that window, even if he did have a righteous premise for this. And I don't believe he does. I believe Hegseth has to be held to account for why this happened, because he's the one saying we're just getting warmed up.
And we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean.
I want those boats taken out, and if we have to, we'll attack on land also, just like we attack on sea. And we're going to start doing those strikes on land, too. The land is much easier. It's much easier. And we know the routes they take. We know everything about them. We know where they live. We know where the bad ones live. And we're going to start that very soon, too. We're taking those son of a bitches out.
Look, I get the muscularity of this for MAGA specifically, but where is the proof? I mean, you've got a lift on your hands to make Venezuela a focus of the war on drugs that warrants 10% of the Navy being moved into the area. Okay? Congress, this is on you. When the president says we will do, he's talking about you. You declare war. That's your job. Article 2 in the Constitution. It's right in front of your face. Why aren't you doing your job? Bravo, Senator Rand Paul on the right, Senator Tim Kaine, Senator Chris Murphy on the left. Good. You guys have been consistent about this. Different administrations, presidents abuse the power, they overstep, and it should be debated, and you've never been listened to. You guys are right, and you should be listened to now. But the Republicans who control Congress, specifically the Speaker, no interest in this. More concerned about the race in Tennessee that's happening today. So at a minimum, release the DOJ memo that says this is okay. Don't keep it secret like the Epstein files, the JFK files, the UAP files. Let us see the memo. Come on, where is it that says this is okay? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. 10% of the Navy stationed around a place that's not known for making the drugs or being any significant part of our drug problem in this country. And let's not forget what the main problem is in the country with drugs, right? Demand, right? The supply is always going to be there if there's a demand. But you want to attack supply? Fine. What do I think this is about? Now, if you've noticed, I've paid very little attention to the first strike, the second strike. To me, that's simple. That's a little bit about CYA. And also, it's about proof. Show me the drugs. Show me what the threat profile was. Show me why you did this. I'm not in any hurry to defend drug dealers, okay? And I don't get why the left is once again doing this to try to paint them to look like authoritarians. Congress should have jumped up a long time before now, and they didn't. They abdicate power to a president, and they've done it time and time again. I think Trump's plan here is a 50-50. 50% is a distraction to showcase strength and beat up on somebody that can't really do anything about it, and use it as a proxy for fighting for your interests, keeping you safe. I just don't think Venezuela is the threat, and they haven't made the case that I'm wrong. The other 50% is making a statement about what they want to demonize, which is socialism. That's why I believe they picked Venezuela. Why? Because Venezuela has the best known, least liked face of socialism in power, Maduro, okay? And if you want to demonize socialism, this is the poster boy to do it with. I think that's a big part of this, certainly bigger than fentanyl or that they're making drugs, because they don't, all right? Demand that the Secretary of War, who, you know, has been doing things that he's not played this well, okay? I can't say I'm surprised, but he should have to be held to account. Where is the proof? The vote on having Hegseth come and present to Congress the rationale for what has been done and what they are planning to do should be unanimous, just like the Epstein files, because frankly, this matters a hell of a lot more. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.